it's Annabelle Beckwith from Yara Journeys, here with another beanbag talk. This time I'm looking at the behaviour cycle. Now, whenever I bring this into a training workshop or programme, so often it turns out to be, for many people in the room, the single most important thing that they take from that workshop. It's really simple, as you see, and yet it's incredibly profound. And as you can see, it's to do with the way that our thoughts impact on our behaviour and the response that we get. You know, in some ways it's a no-brainer, but is it? Right, let's take a look at this. Now, I'm going to use as my working example somebody who I met on one of my training workshops. This lady's situation was that it was an assertiveness and a confidence workshop. This particular lady was of the opinion that when her line manager sent her to attend a meeting in his place, that she was just, to use her words, she was a minion, she was just taking up a seat, she had nothing to offer, her boss was just sending her because he couldn't be bothered to go himself. Now, let's charitably assume that that wasn't the case, that he wanted her to increase her profile, for example, or represent the department, whatever. The actual circumstances, for the purposes of this, are neither here nor there. The crucial thing is what was going on in her head. Now, she is telling herself, I've got nothing to add, I'm just a minion, I'm just there taking up a seat. Her expectations stem from what is going on in her head. Her expectations are therefore that, well, I've got nothing to add. I'm just sitting there, nothing to contribute at all. Her behaviours are going to stem from those expectations. So in exploring this further, we found that she would deliberately sit as far away from the chairman as possible and try not to catch their eye. She might sort of lean back and be doodling on a notepad or something of this sort. But her expectation was that she had nothing to add, so her behaviour reflected that expectation. She often didn't bother to prepare for the meetings and so forth. Now, the response and the result that she got, now when we're looking at this, we're talking about what happens as a result of our behaviours, was that people stopped asking her to meetings because they thought, well, she doesn't actually contribute anything, does she? She just sort of sits there scribbling, you know, drawing flowers on a notepad. She never has anything to add. And when that started to happen, she said, well, there you go. I knew I was a minion and just taking up a seat, and here it is. They don't even bother to invite me anymore. You think, well, you know, go figure. You were telling yourself in your head that you had nothing to contribute. Your expectation was that you were going to do nothing, so you did nothing. So other people responded to that behaviour. Nobody knows what's going on in your head, by the way. Nobody can address this and say, no, you do have something to add. Nobody can do that. They will respond based on your behaviour, on what they see you do and what they hear you say. That's the only thing they've got to go on. So here it became a negative cycle. Right, well, they don't even bother to invite me. I was a minion. I had nothing to contribute. Now, as luck would have it with this particular programme, it was one where we had some coaching over the period of a couple of months, and then we met again. And what we had done with this lady is say, and I would challenge you all to do it, is if you have a negative thought that is not particularly helpful, is to reframe it. We got her to think, every time she went to that meeting, I'm going to add value to this meeting. That's all. Every time she thought, oh, I've just got nothing to add, is to challenge yourself to think, no, I'm going to add something to that meeting. It's actually quite difficult to change your thought processes, and it's something that I've done myself in various situations. It does take self-discipline. You might have to like stick a post-it note somewhere so you constantly see it. And there are many practitioners who will say, oh, you can't change your thoughts. I believe you can because I've had to do it on various occasions. So her challenge was to reframe that thinking from I've got nothing to add to I'm going to add value. Now, the important thing when you're reframing your thoughts is to say something that you actually believe. There would be no point for this lady to be thinking, I'm going to storm it, I'm going to go in there, and because she would never have bought into that as a plausible idea. She could buy into, I'm going to add value in that meeting. So her expectation, if she's thinking, I'm going to add value, her expectation is that she is going to contribute something. Her behaviour, from other people who were on the course who had observed her, said her behaviour started to mirror that expectation. She was sitting up, she was a little bit more alert in terms of her body language, she had prepared more thoroughly for the meeting, she spoke up. And the response that she got from other people was a positive one. And, Janet, that's a really good idea. Right, let's just minute that, because that's a really important thing that you brought to the table, whatever it happened to be. She got a positive result because she was contributing. And this feeds into positive thought. I actually have got something to add. I have. It becomes a positive cycle. So that was just one example from somebody on a program that I was running, but I would invite you to consider, in which circumstances are your thoughts not particularly helpful? I find this happens quite a lot when people are nervous of public speaking, and which, according to researchers, a fear of public speaking is up there with fear of death or being bitten by a snake or something. What are your thoughts? If you're thinking, oh my goodness, I hate this public speaking, I'm gonna trip on my way onto the platform, I'm gonna forget my words, what is your expectation? How helpful is that? Changing that thought and thinking, I know I'm prepared and I know what I'm saying. I'm prepared at anything. Say something that you can believe up here and see the impact that it has in terms of your own expectation. It is all about self-talk. It might sound a bit bonkers, but it's a small thing that can make a big, big difference. Catch yourself thinking something negative. Manage what's going on in your head. That will change your expectations of whatever situation you're walking into. Your expectations will impact on your behaviour. They can't not. And you will see this in the response that you get from other people. It's actually up to you. What's going on in your head? It's up to you whether this becomes a positive or a negative cycle. Is it going to be a positive cycle that takes you onwards and upwards? Is it going to be a negative cycle that drags you down? It all starts here, and it's up to you. The behaviour cycle.